Trump never expected this, but the US dollar's grip just cracked in Africa. In Nairobi, officials stunned the world with an announcement that sent shockwaves from Wall Street to Washington. Kenya will no longer service its massive Chinese loans in US dollars, but in Yuan, the currency of America's biggest rival. Overnight, the dollar's value in Kenya began sliding, and this is the moment Donald Trump never expected could happen. All that happened after a single phone call between Kenya's treasury and Beijing's bankers. What was agreed in that conversation could reshape not just Kenya's finances, but the entire global monetary order. So what really happened behind the scenes, and why is this move more revolutionary than anyone is admitting? In this video, let's find out. For years, Kenya has been burdened by a substantial foreign debt, the majority of which is owed to China. At the center of this burden stands one colossal project, the Standard Gauge Railway, a $5 billion high-speed line connecting Nairobi to the port city of Mombasa. It was supposed to be the crown jewel of Kenya's modernization drive, but instead, it became a symbol of the trap that dollar loans create for developing countries. Each year, Kenya pays close to $1 billion in interest alone on its Chinese debts. To grasp the enormity of that figure, consider what it represents in opportunity cost. $1 billion is enough to construct 200 modern hospitals, equip them with staff and medicine, and still leave enough to electrify vast swathes of rural Kenya, where children study by candlelight. It could fund the education of 2 million students, ensuring generations of skilled workers. Instead, that billion disappears annually into repayment schedules denominated in US dollars, hard currency that Kenya must struggle to acquire, often by exporting raw commodities at unfavorable terms. This is the familiar trap across Africa. Nations borrow in dollars because the US currency dominates global finance. But that dependency becomes a liability. Every time the Federal Reserve raises interest rates in Washington, debt service costs in Nairobi skyrocket. Every time the dollar strengthens against local currencies, the burden on African treasuries grows heavier. Kenya, like many of its neighbors, found itself paying more, not because it borrowed more, but because of fluctuations dictated thousands of miles away. In this environment, Kenya's finance minister finally decided enough was enough. During quiet but consequential negotiations with Chinese officials, a radical question was raised. What if we could repay you in yuan instead of dollars? Beijing's response was swift and enthusiastic. The logic was simple. By restructuring Kenya's debt into yuan, repayment costs could be halved. According to sources close to the talks, such a conversion would result in annual savings of $500 million. That's $500 million every year, funds that could be redirected into healthcare, education, industrial projects, or social programs instead of evaporating into foreign bank accounts. This wasn't just about numbers on a balance sheet. When a close US ally like Kenya decides to walk away from the dollar in favor of the yuan, it sends a message. It is more than economics. It is defiance, a statement that the old financial order is no longer untouchable. Therefore, China didn't agree to Kenya's proposal out of generosity. Beijing has long understood that the real battlefield for global influence is not only fought with armies, but with currencies. For decades, the US dollar has been the undisputed reserve currency of the world, the backbone of trade, finance, and debt settlement. By tying African nations to dollar-denominated loans, Washington indirectly maintained influence over their economies. But China is now changing this system. Every time a country like Kenya switches from dollars to yuan, it weakens the symbolic and practical dominance of the dollar. It's like voting in an invisible election, where each payment in yuan is a ballot against US hegemony. And Kenya is not a minor player. As East Africa's financial hub, Nairobi has an outsized influence over its neighbors, like Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, and even Ethiopia. Watch closely what happens there. If Kenya's gamble proves successful, it's only a matter of time before others start making similar requests. The domino effect could shift not just one country's debt management, but the entire continent's financial alignment. This is how revolutions start quietly, not with tanks rolling into capital cities, not with fiery speeches, but with agreements and secret deals. China knows this, which is why the Yuan offer is more than a lifeline to Kenya. It's a well-calculated move in a global game where Beijing intends to position its currency as the new standard. However, while the headlines fixate on the US-China rivalry, another power has slipped onto Africa. That power is Japan. Only days after the Yuan announcement, Tokyo revealed a financing package for Kenya worth $169 million. But unlike China's vast infrastructure loans, Japan's money came with a different flavor. Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black Africa. Let's continue now. Instead of highways or railways, Japan is targeting automobile manufacturing and electricity generation. The logic is brilliant in its simplicity. These are industries that generate jobs, keep Kenya's young population employed at home rather than migrating, and fuel the foundations of an industrial revolution. Rather than leaving Kenya with massive debts and limited revenue streams, Japan is positioning itself as the partner that builds sustainable industries capable of paying off loans on their own. The contrast could not be clearer. China provides the roads, ports, and railways that connect economies. Japan builds the factories and power grids that give those economies substance. And the United States? Washington continues to focus on lectures about debt sustainability, while simultaneously tightening tariffs that restrict African exports. So imagine you are Kenya. One partner builds your infrastructure, another builds your industries, and a third builds your problems. Which would you choose? This competition between Asia's powers shows that Kenya's Yuan deal isn't just a financial maneuver. It's a pivot point attracting multiple strategies from global players who see Africa's future as a prize worth fighting for. And just as Africa experiments with financial independence, global circumstances are conspiring in its favor. The escalating trade war between the US and China, particularly under Donald Trump's renewed tariff threats, is creating unexpected opportunities for the continent. When Trump announced potential 200% tariffs on Chinese manufactured goods, Beijing retaliated by restricting exports of rare earth minerals, critical components in everything from smartphones to electric cars. Western factories panicked, supply chains faltered, and suddenly, the world looked around and remembered. Africa has rare earth minerals too. From the cobalt mines of the Congo to untapped deposits in Tanzania, South Africa, and Burundi, the continent holds some of the richest reserves of the very materials that power modern technology. For decades, African mines struggled to compete with China's low prices. But with China restricting supply, global prices rise, and Africa's long-overlooked resources become indispensable. The irony could not be sharper. The US-China trade war, designed to weaken Beijing's economic power, is inadvertently creating the very conditions for Africa's industrial emergence. For decades, China has dominated this market, controlling as much as 80% of global rare earth exports. The West, despite its technological prowess, grew complacent and dependent, sourcing its most critical materials from Beijing. But when those supplies are restricted, panic sets in. Western manufacturers face rising costs, delays, and uncertainty. Suddenly, an uncomfortable truth is impossible to ignore. The world's technological future depends not just on China, but on Africa. Africa's mineral wealth has long been acknowledged, but underutilized. The Democratic Republic of Congo alone produces over 70% of the world's cobalt, a metal indispensable for lithium-ion batteries. Guinea holds some of the largest bauxite reserves, vital for aluminum production. South Africa dominates in platinum group metals. Tanzania, Burundi, and Malawi all have rare earth deposits waiting to be tapped. For decades, these resources were either extracted cheaply by foreign companies or left undeveloped due to a lack of investment. Now the trade war changes everything. By driving up prices and disrupting supply, it forces global industries to look to Africa, not as an afterthought, but as a strategic alternative. For the first time in decades, African nations no longer need to beg for favorable terms. They can demand them. If global industries want access to cobalt, manganese, or platinum, they must now negotiate with Africa on Africa's terms. That shift alone represents a tectonic rebalancing of power. This new leverage intersects perfectly with Kenya's bold decision to restructure its debts in Yuan. As Bloomberg notes, the rationale is clear. Chinese interest rates are lower, and Yuan repayments are less volatile than dollar-denominated ones. For Kenya, this is more than a cost-saving measure. It's political survival. In 2023, the government's attempt to raise taxes triggered deadly protests. Ordinary Kenyans, already burdened by inflation, refused to shoulder more. Facing a fiscal crisis, the government needed a lifeline, and Yuan repayment offered exactly that. A way to cut annual interest payments in half, saving nearly $500 million. In conclusion, the stakes for Africa in the coming decade could not be higher. Either it cements its position as the world's most powerful emerging bloc, using its minerals, markets, and financial independence to dictate terms, or it falls back into the familiar cycles of dependence. Kenya's Yuan deal shows the way forward. Bold moves are not only possible but necessary. Every strategist knows the most powerful moves are the ones unseen, until it's too late. Africa is making those moves now. The game has begun, and the world must finally recognize that Africa is not a pawn. It is becoming the decisive player. Do you think Kenya's Yuan move is the first nail in the coffin for the US dollar's dominance in Africa? Will the US dollar collapse faster than anyone expects if more countries pull a move like Kenya just did? In the comment section below, share your thoughts on what new currency Africa should adopt. Chinese Yuan or a new unified single African currency? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We bring videos on Black Africa, its history, rich arts and culture, and things the world should know about. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.